One of the most recognizable and significant individuals in the history of modern gospel music is Fred Hammond. Hammond has been at the forefront of gospel innovation for decades, with a ministry that has affected millions of people and a voice that goes deep into the soul. Behind the stage lights and packing, however, is a personal tale of suffering, reflection, and a courageous decision to take a path that many would avoid, staying unmarried following a well-publicized divorce. This article explores Fred Hammond's life story, including his marriage, its dissolution, the ensuing public scrutiny, and in the end, the route he took to find peace and healing. It is a tale of men, maturity, and a faith put to the proof by fire in addition to divorce. On December 27, 1960, Fred Hammond was born in Detroit, Michigan, a city known for its Christian community and rich musical heritage. Born into a household that fostered his spiritual development, Hammond fell in love with music at a young age. The church served as both his first stage and his place of worship. He joined the well-known gospel ensemble commissioned in the 1980s, where his dual roles as vocalist and bassist contributed to the group's distinctive style. In order to appeal to a younger audience and make gospel music more widely available, Commissioned was renowned for breaking boundaries and fusing traditional gospel with a contemporary urban feel. Later, Hammond had a lucrative solo career, releasing timeless albums like Spirit of David and Pages of Life, Chapter 1 and 2. His songs grew to represent adoration, sincerity, and a real relationship with God. His personal life, however, would eventually change as his career continued to flourish. Kim Hammond and marriage. The start. During the early years of his ascent to stardom in the mid-1980s, Fred Hammond wed Kim Hammond. For a while, the pair appeared to be the epitome of what many would view as the perfect Christian marriage, one based on respect for one another, ministry, and family values. They had 2 kids together, including an adopted son named Darius, affectionately known as Bubba. Fred frequently talked about how much his family meant to him in public, and gave Kim credit for helping him get through the challenges of recording, touring, and running a burgeoning music business. Externally, everything appeared flawless. However, as is frequently the case, the private issues that are seething behind the scenes can occasionally be obscured by the spotlight. The cracks start to appear. As time went on, difficulties started to appear in the Hammond home. Fred would subsequently acknowledge that his own immaturity during the first several years of the marriage was the root of many of the problems. He expressed in interviews how unprepared he felt for the duties of fatherhood and marriage. Their relationship was strained due to a number of factors, including money management problems, emotional distance, and the ongoing demands of public ministry. Fred had an unrelenting schedule. It took a toll for ministry activities, recording sessions, and concerts. He later disclosed that there were times when his wife briefly left to give them both some space and separation from the tension that had consumed them both. The divorce, a watershed following. Over 20 years of marriage, Fred and Kim Hammond formally separated in 2004. Many fans who had long admired the couple's supposedly unbreakable relationship were taken aback by the announcement. For Fred, the divorce represented a profound spiritual crisis in addition to a personal loss. He openly acknowledged that he struggled to maintain the marriage. He didn't want his name to be added to the lengthy list of Christian leaders whose marriages had failed. However, reconciliation did not materialize in spite of his attempts. According to Fred, the divorce caused him to go through a period of introspection and personal responsibility, which emotionally tore him apart. Public responses and debates, like most celebrity splits, rumors circulated quickly. Hammond was suspected of infidelity by others. Others pointed the finger at the demanding nature of music and ministry. There were even rumors that the dissolution of what appeared to be a God-ordained union was partly due to spiritual warfare. Fred decided not to participate in the gossip. Rather, he discussed the value of honesty, forgiveness, and grace. He never expressed personal issues or attacked his ex-wife. Rather, He accepted responsibility for the breakdown and grew from it. Hammond's dedication to upholding his integrity, not only as an artist but also as a Christian man enduring genuine suffering, was noteworthy. Instead of defending himself, he encouraged others going through similar difficulty by using his position. "I didn't want my children to grow up in a broken home, but it happened, and God didn't stop loving me." That changed everything. His message had an honest, unvarnished, and gracious tone. Hammond chose vulnerability above concealing his suffering or acting as though he had it together, and fans found great resonance in that vulnerability, refusing to hurry. Fred's reasons for not getting married again. Following the divorce, fans and followers conjectured about Fred Hammond's potential remarriage for many years. His supporters genuinely wanted to see him whole again in the conventional sense, so it wasn't simply idle curiosity. Fred, however, had other ideas. He made it apparent in multiple interviews that getting married again was not his top concern right now, though he had given it some thought. Particularly around 8 years following the divorce, he decided to stay unmarried. He had multiple motivations: practical, emotional, and spiritual. Fred clarified that he required time to mature, have a deeper understanding of himself, and forge a closer bond with God that was unfiltered by another relationship. "I had to relearn how to live, how to be content with who I am, and how to father my children without feeling guilty." By referring to it as a siege that destroyed what was once solid, he also alluded to the spiritual conflict he believed had assaulted his marriage. That wording demonstrated his profound understanding of relationships as a spiritual battleground, as much as an emotional one. For Fred, being single was a deliberate act of purpose and protection, rather than a sign of loss. From suffering to claim the influence on his music. Although Fred Hammond's music has always been emotionally complex, it became even more so after his divorce. His lyrics started to focus more on inner peace, healing, and putting one's faith in God during times of personal failure. For those who are aware of his past, songs like "They That Wait" and "No Weapon" acquired a new significance. With each note, fans could hear the anguish, the surrender, and the hope. In addition to singing worship songs, Hammond lived them. His music began to provide a language for loss and healing, which was one of the most significant changes. In societies where suffering is frequently repressed or spiritualized, Fred allowed individuals to openly grieve and develop. His post-divorce CD, "Free to Worship," was a song of freedom. Not only freedom in Christ, but also emotional and mental freedom from guilt and regret. In the midst of change, fatherhood for Fred Hammond never wavered in his dedication to his children. Even when his marriage ended, he frequently talked about his adopted son Darius and daughter Brienne, emphasizing the happiness and sense of duty that parenthood provided to his life. In interviews, he talked about the actual challenges of co-parenting following a divorce, and his desire to shield his kids from harm, while also teaching them how to persevere in the face of hardship. He set an example of humility in addition to strength. "I didn't want them to believe that love wasn't worthwhile or genuine. I wanted children to understand that although things don't always go as planned." Fred made advantage of his position to urge other men, particularly Christian and Black fathers, to continue being involved in their children's lives even after they have separated. Fred stayed in a culture where many men leave, and his ministry was shaped by that example. The church's reaction, pardon or penalties. The response of the church is one of the most challenging parts of going through a divorce as a gospel performer. The same was true for Fred Hammond. Some supporters questioned whether he should remain in ministry, while many others backed him. Some leaders voiced their worries in private and occasionally in public. Fred took the criticism in stride. He didn't snap or make an aggressive attempt to defend himself. Rather, he let his music speak for itself, leaned into God, and concentrated on healing. Many of his detractors were eventually silenced by the caliber and sincerity of his ministry. His message was straightforward. Someone who fails in one area is nonetheless eligible to serve. Through his sermons, songs, and way of life he preached the gospel's central message of restoration. The more meaningful takeaway: instantaneous redemption. Fred Hammond's post-divorce life was about more than just healing. It was about atonement. We frequently talk about God's capacity for restoration in Christian culture, but we hardly ever witness that process in such a terrible and public way. Fred opened his valley moments to the world. He showed them what it looked like when God began the healing process, rather than merely telling them what God was capable of. He ministered while healing, worshipped while wounded, and didn't wait until everything was fixed. His brand was born out of that genuineness. People now followed him for the adventure rather than just the music. The legacy of Fred Hammond: power through openness. Fred Hammond is one of the most significant gospel musicians of the last 30 years, and his reputation is cemented by both his audacious openness and his inventiveness as a musician. Hammond reversed the trend in a field and religious culture where vulnerability is shunned and perfection is frequently projected. "I hurt," he said, using his position to express something that many leaders would not. "I made a mistake. I didn't succeed. However, I persisted." Barriers were broken by this candor. Although gospel music has always conveyed messages of hope, it is rare that a person of Fred's caliber has permitted his personal suffering to serve as the sermon. He encouraged people to bring their own sorrow before God by being willing to sing and talk from a place of genuine heartbreak. Whether on stage, in interviews, or in his lyrics, Fred made it abundantly evident that ministry success does not equate to a lack of hardship. Instead, the anointing is defined by what significance is now audible in songs like "Lord, Your Grace," "Hear in Our Praise," and "Give Me a Clean Heart." The audience is aware that the performer has experienced the words he sings. Fred's redefining of ministry masculinity. Redefining masculinity, particularly in the context of the church, is another important effect of Hammond's post-divorce path. Male Christian leaders are all too frequently required to exhibit a stoic firmness that is devoid of emotional openness. Fred, however, disputed that. He was candid about his struggles with guilt, his inability to handle finances, his inability to be a perfect husband, and his quest to rediscover love after loss. He made no accusations. The fact that he accepted responsibility was strength in and of itself. By doing this, he allowed other men to accept their imperfections and pursue treatment, especially those in religious communities. He exemplified a manhood based on empathy rather than ego. According to his teachings, emotional intelligence and vulnerability are indicators of maturity rather than weakness. The choice that has not changed. The reason he is still unmarried. Fred Hammond is still unmarried years after his divorce, despite having time to recover and possibly get married again. According to him, it's not because he's cut off to love forever, but rather because he recognizes the responsibility and weight that come with being married. "I don't want my brokenness to cause harm to anyone. I would rather be completely entire than go into another unsustainable commitment." For Fred, being single is a time of intentionality rather than a nothingness. He has dedicated himself to mentoring, music, preaching, and parenthood without the stress of forming a new romantic relationship. He travels, writes, produces, and worships. Many people who have felt pressured to get married again soon or who see being single as a sign of failure, particularly in Christian contexts, have found resonance in this decision. Fred's story serves as a potent counter-narrative. You can be content, single, and still have a strong sense of purpose in God's plan. Changing the dialogue on divorce in the church. In the past, the church has found it difficult to discuss divorce. It has silenced those who are in pain, since it is frequently viewed as taboo or a sign of spiritual failure. But Fred Hammond's story ended up serving as a catalyst for change. By revealing the whole story, before, during, and after his divorce, Hammond facilitated discussions about forgiveness, recovery, and reconciliation. Those who felt invisible in the pews found a voice in his music. Others stopped hiding because of his story. His story became a case study on how to deal with divorce in a dignified and religious way in many Christian communities. He demonstrated that being shattered does not preclude someone from being used by God, and that dissolving a marriage does not imply stopping a ministry. He is now a refined man who is not defined by his pain. Fred Hammond, who is currently in his 60s, continues to travel, record, and minister. His tone may be more contemplative and his beard grayer, but his spirit is still youthful and fervent. He lifts people with a softer type of strength, teaches more, and laughs more. He continues to mentor up-and-coming musicians in the gospel and Christian music community, and has a close relationship with his kids. Performers like Travis Green, Jonathan McReynolds, and Ty Tribbett have all emphasized Hammond's impact as a guy of integrity and tenacity. In addition to his artistic influence, Fred frequently pauses and responds calmly when asked if he regrets the divorce or wishes his life had gone differently. Naturally, I wish the suffering hadn't occurred. However, I wouldn't exchange the lessons I've gained from it. Not a single tear was wasted by God. Every bit of it was transformed by Him for His own glory. The song goes on. The narrative of Fred Hammond's marriage, divorce, heartache, and recovery is more than just a tale. It is a testament. It serves as a reminder that everyone is human, even the most renowned among us, and that every hardship has the capacity to be transformed into a hallowed tale. In a society where failure is frequently used as a yardstick for success, Fred serves as a reminder that real strength lies in our ability to bounce back from setbacks. He has set an example for authenticity in ministry by staying unmarried, embracing vulnerability, and leading from a position of brokenness. He might not get married again. He might keep singing by himself. But Fred Hammond's voice, molded by love and grief, will continue to reverberate through carts, earphones, and sanctuaries, expressing the type of truth that only a man refined in fire can sing.